everybody, and welcome to North of 60. I'm Heidi Schwaghofer. Today we're going to talk about Medicare. It's not the most exciting topic in the world, but I have to tell you that I have learned a great deal from my guest about Medicare, and it's certainly a necessary topic to talk about. My guest today is Doug McDowell, who's a senior insurance specialist with IEN Risk Management. Thank you for coming. Did I say IEN? I did it right.
You did it correctly, yes. Thank you very much, Heidi.
Thank you so much, Doug. Tell me a little bit first about you, your background, and how you ended up doing this.
Sure. I spent a 40-plus year career in corporate America, basically in credit and financial management. And I retired a little over 5.5 years ago, and needed to do something in retirement. I found that was, the first year was easy. I was just tired of the corporate life.
Sure.
And then I needed to get into something because I firmly believe that you need to stay mentally active and engaged with people in retirement. And I just, because of my financial background and my own experience of looking at the Medicare, whole Medicare issue, I had an interest in helping people understand it and get through the process. And so to see if that's really what I wanted to do, in 2017, I worked during the annual election period for SumaCare in Akron and got my insurance license because I found out that if you're really going to talk to people about Medicare, you really have to be licensed. And then I decided, after that experience, that was with Medicare Advantage, and then I decided to be able to represent all types of options for clients. Good. And so about a year ago, I met up with the folks at IEN. They were the kind of people I wanted to work with. And so I sort of hung out my shingle May of last year, and I really enjoy what I'm doing.
You can tell you do.
Yeah, I do it.
What do you have to do to be a specialist? You mentioned a number of certifications and tests and so on you have to deal with.
Well, first of all, you have to get your license in the state of Ohio.
Okay.
In a license that allows you to sell health care and Medicare insurance. And that's, you take online courses, you sit for tests, and so forth. And so I did that, but you have to renew that every 2 years, I'm sorry. And during that period of time, you have to, like a profession, you have to take CEUs and so forth.
Yep.
But then in addition to that, every year you have to take a federal certification, which I happen to take. It's called AHIP, American Hospital Insurance Plans. It's an industry organization. So every year you have to pass a certification to sell federal plans. And then for every insurance company you represent, you have another series of tests that you have to go. You have to be certified not only by the federal government, by all the carriers that you represent. And you're required to do this every year to make sure that you're on top of the changes, know what's going on. And so you spend time almost year round on the topic.
Yes, that's what it sounds like.
That's exactly correct.
All right, now I want to, my personal experience was that David and I, David works full-time, had insurance through the company that he works for. He's a little older than I am. I turned 65, and we didn't know when and if we should start Medicare. So can you talk about the when?
That's of course, that's number one of the two major issues you have to decide. The when is, well, by law, when you turn 65, and if you've worked during your working career 40 quarters, equivalent 10 years of work, and paid the appropriate payroll taxes, you are entitled to Part A automatically. Part A is the hospitalization part of original Medicare. And so you're eligible for that, and there's no premium or anything at age 65.
Okay.
You can apply for it then, or you can delay it. However, you can continue to do, as I did. I did exactly what your husband did. I actually worked till I was 69. And so we stayed on my employer health coverage. You can get on Medicare at 65 or you can delay it. And the timing of that is based on your individual situation. If you're not working when you're 65 and Medicare is the best option for you, then you can go on it right away.
Okay.
But I sit down with, first of all, that's a topic that many people start discussing with their financial advisors or amongst themselves in their 50s. They start saying, well, when are we going to, and really, if I might interject, that's the time to start at least getting an overview of what Medicare is to get an idea. Most financial advisors, or if you're putting together a financial plan yourself, you need to do an estimate of what you're going to spend in those years.
Yeah,
okay?
we did that.
Well, that's a good time to start getting just an overview, an understanding. And then you sit down and you look at it, and with your financial advisor or and I would highly recommend that because that's part of your whole financial picture. And I can give I would sit down with some of my clients and give them, okay, there's an estimate up till now, but let's talk about exactly the specifics of what your situation is.
Okay.
And then you make a decision. You can, such a person like your husband who's an attorney, who from an insurance standpoint is sort of self-insured. And as you well know, the picture there is rather expensive.
Yep.
So for a couple like yourself, it would be rather easy at a certain point in time to make the decision.
That's exactly, we weighed cost.
Sure, and that's really what it boils down to.
Okay.
And many people who, like myself, had employer-funded or underwritten health insurance, well, it paid for us to hold off until I actually retired. Even though my wife retired before than I did, she stayed on my coverage. So the real answer is when should you go on Medicare is the typical Medicare answer. It depends. It really does depend on the individual situation.
All right. Now, so that's the when. Now the what. So you and I talked a lot about what Medicare covers, Part A and B, and then what covers what Medicare doesn't cover.
Sure.
So let's go through that.
Okay, I'll try to be not too painful in this. If you'll remember back, I believe it was in the 60s when original Medicare was put into effect. It did not include what we now call drug coverage, okay? So in those days, we were just talking, so we refer to that as original Medicare, and Part A, which is an entitlement, and you get that from working, is the hospital, sort of the institutions, the buildings that if you're in the hospital or in skilled nursing, et cetera. Part B is the services, the doctors, the doctors, the surgeons, the people, the x-rays, et cetera, okay? And there is a premium for that. And to make it very simple, Medicare was never designed to cover 100% of our medical costs. If you have large copays and deductions on the hospitalization, which is A, and on the B, there's about 20% that you would be totally responsible for. But the real key there is no maximum during an annual year. In other words, Medicare always works around a calendar year, and there is no annual maximum. You can, if you have a $100,000 Part B bill, you're responsible for 20% of that, and if you have two of them in 1 year, it could be $40,000. So that's why we always say that you need some kind of additional insurance in addition to basic.
You could get wiped out in a matter of a year if
in a matter of a few days, yes, and of course there's plenty of press about the costs, etc.
Right.
But the real thing is, it was always designed that it would cover the things that it covers, and then you would do something additional to protect yourself from
those 20%.
Roughly speaking, 20%.
Okay, Doug. Now, Medigap, Medicare Supplemental, Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
Let's talk about those.
So you've made the decision of the date that you're going to start taking Medicare.
Okay.
So that's number one. Now, the number two decision is, how am I going to obtain this coverage that I need to fill those things that Medicare doesn't? Well, there's two ways. First of all is Medigap or Medicare Supplement. And what those plans do is, as the name implies, they fill the gaps or they supplement original Medicare, A and B. So, by law, these are the plans that have letters A, B, F, G, N. And plans by law the terms and conditions are all the same, no matter where you are in the state of Ohio. They might be a little different from state to state, but in the state of Ohio, a Plan F or a Plan G or a Plan N has all the terms and conditions, no matter which company you go to.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that changes is the premium, the monthly premium.
Okay.
So these plans, with this plan, you pay a monthly premium, and when you're 65, it might start out at 102 to 120, and it goes up over time, and typically would cap out at some age. Okay. The critical thing is, you pay a monthly premium. You can go to anybody in the United States that accepts Medicare. There are no networks, and it covers you out-of-state travel. It's the travel. There are no networks. People like the certainty of knowing what they pay every month and then having little or absolutely no co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles going forward.
And if I go to Florida for the winter and something bad happens, I can see any physician in Florida
that takes Medicare.
Okay.
Which is hard to believe there would be not a major hospital system, anywhere.
Right.
Okay, so the other option is Medicare Advantage. You typically pay a very low or even zero premium. There are networks. There are co-pays, deductibles, and co-insurance, but there is an annual max out of what we call maximum out of pocket that you would pay every year. They always have a geographic region, okay? They sell these plans by county, okay? What happens is a large insurer, and you know all the names, contracts with Medicaid. I call it CMS, for Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, to bundle together A and B in a package, the A and the B from original Medicare, add additional services perhaps in the area of dental, vision, hearing. Those three areas and a few others, in fact, I should have mentioned, are not covered by original Medicare.
We learned that.
You learned that. So you get some extra there, and then they pay little or nothing. As far as travel is concerned, anywhere they travel in the United States, if they go to, they can go to urgent care or through the emergency room, it's covered as in-network. If they can't selectively elect to go out of network, or they might not be covered at all, or they're going to pay a higher rate. Okay?
Okay.
So what it really boils down to, there's people that are comfortable with networks. They go to Medicare Advantage. There's people and want to pay as they go, as they incur needs, that they're comfortable with that, and then they like the extras. Or they want it supplemental. They travel a lot. They don't mind paying the monthly, but they pay very little extra.
There's a peace of mind with that one, frankly, I think. But
well, listen, people ask me, what is the best plan? They're all good plans. They're highly regulated. They're all good plans. The best plan for you is what fits your needs. That's the key. And that's what we try to get somebody into the plan that fits their specific needs, and those needs might change over time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what if they do? What if I've decided to pick a Medicare Advantage plan? I'm in the network. All my doctors are at the clinic where I go. But then something happens and I know I'm going to need different kind of medical care. Can I switch to?
Well, the simple answer is yes, but it can be difficult in that there are protections for you in the first year that you're on Medicare. If you go to a Medicare Advantage plan and part of the way through that year said, ooh, I'm not comfortable with this, you have what's called a special election period, a special enrollment period, you can move back to the key between, another key which is really important for the two plans is when you go to a supplement plan, the first time you go on Medicare, there's no consideration of pre-existing conditions.
Okay.
None at all.
Okay.
Same thing with Medicare Advantage. When you go on Medicare, no matter what plan you go on, and this is very important as you know,
Yeah.
there's no concern about pre-existing conditions. Now, down the road, if you're in a supplement plan, want to go to a different supplement plan, say to an F to a G, or from company A to company B, the company you're requesting to go to they don't have to, they can do what's called medical underwriting. They can ask you questions to determine if anything has happened in the last year or two. And if, depending on those answers, they can deny you coverage or put you in at a higher category.
Oh my
Okay?
goodness.
Well,
you could be doing, I mean, this
Yeah.
could be a full-time job for
well,
the consumer even.
Yes, you need to be very careful about what you do initially, and which is why really I highly recommend people start thinking about it before they get there. Now,
Sure.
with Medicare Advantage plans, so Medicare supplement plans are written by independent insurance companies licensed by the state of Ohio, and they typically have no end. They don't go away, they're not like a year they're a perpetual contract, okay? Unless you choose to leave, you don't pay the bill, certain circumstances.
Right.
Medicare Advantage plans and prescription drug plans, which we haven't mentioned yet, are one-year contracts, okay? So we are rapidly approaching this annual enrollment period. This annual enrollment period is where somebody that has a Medicare Advantage plan, MAP, Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan, because it can be rolled in, or a prescription drug plan can once a year sit down and between October 15th and December 7th enroll in a plan that to be in January 1st of the following year, and with no pre-existing conditions coming into play.
Okay,
So-
a short period of time
And
that they have to really pay attention to.
which is why
if they're-
you're all getting a lot of mail right now, a lot of
TV
ads.
Yep. Yep.
This is a big deal for and really, you think about it, that's everybody. If you choose Medicare supplement, you're going to have a drug plan.
Right.
So this is important for your drug
Right.
plan. And if you're in Medicare Advantage, because the terms and conditions of these plans can change from year to year.
Okay.
Most importantly, the biggest changes seem to be in the drug area, where
Yes.
formularies, which are the lists of drugs they carry, can change. They're required to have certain drugs in certain tiers, but there's far more drugs out there than a company really could inventory. And then the pricing is on tiers. 1, 2 is generic and so forth. Well, these can change every year. So there's a lot more to the analysis than just the monthly premium, okay? And with 10,000 seniors aging into Medicare every day, and that continuing
Is that really true? Holy
and that
moly.
demographic is projected to go on for the next 8 to 10 years. The insurance industry, this is the major growth of the industry, which is why companies are really going after senior. I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, I know.
This is a big market.
We're a big market.
For a lot of reasons.
Yep.
The travel industry, the vacation.
Yep.
So that's why there's this real rush right now. So you have to make a decision when to go and then which way to go. Once you've decided those two major ways to go, then there's a lot of detail that it does fall into place, okay?
Okay.
But the Centers for Medicare recommends that you review your drug plan and your Medicare Advantage plan once a year.
Yep, and that we just got our drug plan synopsis, or whatever one calls it, review, and it's multi-page.
Yes.
And
small print.
Yeah.
It's called
It is.
It's called the Annual Notice of Change. And I'm sure that the only thing that I look at, that you look at, whatever, it probably has what's the premium going to be for next year.
Right.
Well, that catches our eye, and I'm sure it's up at the top somewhere. But there's so much more to it than that, okay? And the average person, it's really a shame. Once you go, the typical scenario is somebody gets through this to get on it, like you and Dave just did in the last year or so. And there's this big relief that you've done that.
Yes.
And the last thing in the world you want to do is open up that whole can of worms again.
That is
correct.
correct.
But it's well worth the little bit of time it takes. And the tools are available to do that, because the market in the Medicare Advantage, mostly in the drug, but Medicare Advantage, changes from year to year. The big change going on in the Medigap plans is the trend away from F, which was the gold-plated plan for the last years and years, to this G, where the Part B deductible comes into play. Because there's a law change coming up for that. Not sure I want to get into all the details of that right now, but there's always something out there.
All right. Now, I want to mention something that worries me, and I know I mentioned this to you when we were having a cup of coffee. My dad is 99, and he will get mail from insurance companies and from things that he thinks are important.
Sure.
And he starts filling them out. And I was telling you about this questionnaire about his health that he wanted me to help him with, and I thought it just looked odd. Mm-hmm. We need to be vigilant about our parents. And I want you just to speak to that, because it's important to me.
Well, I think this is an area that the children can gain more than the parents, really, because we owe our parents that protection. I started getting interested in this in my 40s or 50s because my dad was getting over 65. And I was interested in, what are you going to do? Because I had no idea. And so I started, and he was very, like your father, he was able to handle his affairs for years.
Right.
And I learned from him initially, okay? I learned the generalities of Medicare and so forth. But then the fact that I sat down and I could tell as he aged, it's just normal. They're not quite as sharp as they are.
And it's confusing stuff.
Well, and the law changes. What he knew when he signed up, and he lived a long time, so he signed up, he was alive at least 20 years after he signed up. He was on a Medigap plan that hasn't been sold for a decade, okay? But then he would start getting telemarketing calls and so forth. Well,
Yes.
I think what everybody can do is, first of all, start, if you're not 65, you owe it to yourself and your parents to get involved in their medical coverage to protect them. It's not that when they are younger and can handle everything, you're not intrusive. You are giving them an opportunity to teach you. But you can detect in your interaction with your parents over time what's going,
Sure.
Whether they're slowly,
Sure.
their mind is going,
Sure.
you want to make sure that they don't make any decisions that could be, he shouldn't be filling anything in and sending it back, because hidden in there somewhere is he's giving them authorization to contact him.
That's what you
That kind of
told
stuff.
me, and it
it's
worried me.
like insurance. What they do is they'll send out what we call business reply, and most of these are very reputable. But
still, they're asking rather invasive questions about
that
his
any
health.
reputable company is not, number one, allowed and would never ask that kind of information.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
so I think that's very important for people to help their parents
Yep.
or neighbors
Yep.
or friends that are getting on and might be slowing down a little bit, so
Yep.
that they don't get taken advantage
I
of.
completely agree with you. I can't believe how fast this half hour has gone, Doug. It's freaking me out. I want to have you just sort of sum up takeaways, and I want to mention the Medicare 101. So give me some last minute summary takeaways.
First of all, if you're approaching Medicare, start working on learning about it as soon as possible.
Okay.
If you're on Medicare, review the plans that
Yeah,
you're on
yeah.
at least once a year.
We have to
either
do that.
with your children, your spouse, somebody. Make sure you're on the right plans.
Yep.
And then do make the decisions based on what you think's going to happen next year, because the program is, I think you'll attest, the program it runs pretty well.
It actually does.
I mean, the good news is that the administration of it, day in and day out, benefits paid, so forth, it works.
I didn't believe it at first.
I understand that. I understand
but
that.
then the more, now I've been on it for a year and a month, and now I'm starting to see how billing happens with the Cleveland Clinic, and what Medicare pays and what my Medigap pays, and it's just really, I can get it.
Yeah, it takes, you can explain it to someone.
Yes.
But the other thing I say is,
Barely.
and I've mentioned this to you, and
Yes.
I don't know, I'll put this, the state of Ohio puts out an annual booklet, which is available in a PDF form on the insurance website. I download it. I use this as it's not what you need to make all your decisions, but it's a heck of a good starting.
I thought so too.
I highly
Instructive.
recommend that all people that are on Medicare take a look at this and keep it around the house. I've already downloaded. I've got it in PDF form.
I have one
If your
too.
viewers want to send you an email
Okay.
and ask for a copy, we can get them a
Great.
copy at no obligation of any kind.
Great.
But it's something that they can have around the house.
And they can have you come over and visit too, and explain this whole
If they have any
thing.
questions, either going on Medicare or coming up to the annual review,
Yep.
I'd be more than happy to sit down with them, sure.
You helped me a lot,
Well,
and I
thank you.
appreciate it, Doug. If you want more information or a way to contact Doug, please send an email to me at northof60hctv@gmail.com. I'll make sure to reach out to Doug, and he can respond to you, send you the Medicare booklet, or whatever else you might need. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being
Well,
here.
thank you for having me.